What's going on, everybody? It's that time of the week again. It's the mainstream podcast in Zengate. I got Sam with me from Zengate, and we got Raz from Sustainable Ada. This guy is doing so much amazing stuff inside the Cardano ecosystem. I can't wait to chat up with him and see what he has going on. There's some events that he has coming up. My connection seems to be breaking up. Sam, give me 1 second. You want to take over?
Yeah, sounds good. So, hi everyone. So my name's Sam, the co-founder of Zengate Global. Joined with Brian today as well, head of marketing, and our special guest Raz. So I might just kick things off, Raz. You're a big figure in the Cardano ecosystem, but please tell everyone in our community a bit about who you are, your background, and how you got involved in this beautiful world of blockchain.
Hi guys. First off, thank you so much for the invitation. Really humbled to be here. Can you all hear me clearly on your side?
Yes.
Yeah. They say in Web3 it's kind of like dog years, and to kind of go back in time and think about my journey. For me, that's a kind of daily practice, actually. To make sense of things, have a reminder of why you woke up and what's your purpose. Those of you that lived through the pandemic, clearly that was a world-changing event, right? I bring that up particularly because during 2020 I was crapping my pants at the thought of becoming a parent. My wife was pregnant. I was teaching in a secondary school in London. Anyone who listens to this or knows about the world of teaching and inner city life, let's just say my acceleration of hair loss went through another level. And then we have now lockdown and everyone's like can't see their friends, can't see their family, and it's scary, right? It's something no one's ever lived through before. And at that particular moment for me, it enabled me to do a lot of independent research. I've always been kind of a night owl, and so I had a heck of a lot of time now to kind of dive into things that I really cared about and had been keeping my eye on over the years, and notably Web3, blockchain, and how it's supposed to be revolutionary and improve our systems and make the world a better place. If you think back to 2008, 2009, when you had the global financial crisis, in the UK, I was studying at the time. I was an economics undergrad, studying in the evenings and then working full-time as a teacher in a school in Tower Hamlets, which is unfortunately a part of the country that has the highest levels of child poverty. And I had a project that I was working on that brought laptops and internet into the homes of people who were marginalized, vastly disconnected from the system. And over the 4 years of running that project and seeing how technology can actually have a positive impact on people's lives, I realized that, studying economics and graduating and learning about all of these theories, there's a huge chasm, a huge gap between what you learn in the classroom and what's on the streets and in people's lives and in what's on the news. And I was finding it funny that Bitcoin was born in this mess, because at the time when I first read the white paper, I was like, some of it went over my head, and some of it was like, this is science fiction. And I was like, how do I get my hands on this? And and I couldn't find a way at the time. And then I was like, I'm pretty occupied with other things, so let's just put it to one side. But then, fast forward to the pandemic time, and I fell into that rabbit hole, and then I found Cardano. And Cardano was positioning itself as, the blockchain that was based off of peer-reviewed science, that was all about making the world a better place and offering improvements to what had come before as a third generation blockchain, right? As a new financial and social infrastructure. And when I watched those videos that Charles had put out there on TED and the famous whiteboard.
So it was the TED Talk that got you?
Yeah, the TED Talk especially. And what made me laugh is he used the exact same slide template that I use when I teach, and I was like, this is a message, this is a sign, But yeah, my wife very quickly was like, what are you getting yourself into? What is all this crypto blockchain stuff? And fast forward to now, and here we are talking, right? And I'm really inspired to see how things have grown and developed over the years. And you guys are doing amazing work as well at Zengate. And yeah, I think this is something that was like my dream come true, if you want to put it one way, like to actually see people from across the world come together. Maybe they've never met, like I've never met you in person, right, Brian? And
Right.
Technology is bringing people together for real world change. And I'm really excited to talk more about all of that, in this conversation.
Yeah, can you guys hear me now? Is it better?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Excellent.
It's funny how sometimes your studies come full circle, right? Like I also studied economics at university in Australia, and the first few years of my career as a consultant really didn't use it that much. I did a lot of banking and sort of insurance sort of work back before, but never really used it. But now that I'm in the crypto space, you're sort of forced to think about macroeconomics. You're forced to think about the role of money. It's really just come full circle, and it's I don't know if it's the same with you, Raz, but definitely it's come in handy, at least the economic studies, and it just provides a different layer of thinking, I think, which I feel very fortunate to have.
Yeah, 100%. And it also reminded me how, for one reason or another, most schools and curriculums around the world don't have this as a core component of education. Like you may learn about it if it's your electives, and obviously not everyone's going to choose economics, and so a lot of people leave school without the basic understanding of the system that is causing problems or opening opportunities for them. But this is where I think Web3 has a good opportunity to push things in the positive direction.
Yeah. So one of the things that has really has interested me and why I got in Cardano was the way that the vision was back in 2017, 2018, right? That changing the world. And one of the things that you are working on with sustainable ADA is how to be sustainable, right? So one of the things that I often wonder, for what did you see in Cardano that made you think that this was the right place? Was it just the vision that Charles had talked about all the time? Was it the community? Like, what really attracted you to it?
Great question, man. Vision was one, but ultimately it was the people. When I first went from lurker in the shadows to turn off the microphone in those early crowdcast calls, I was like, who else out there is like me, teaching maybe? Who else out there thinks that this stuff can actually be revolutionary and brought into classrooms? That was my first step deeper into the community. I was lucky enough to discover something called Project Catalyst and find out that there were these town halls where people could join for free and listen and learn and ask questions and network. And yeah, I took the leap, man. And I'm so happy I did, because I met amazing people. For example, James from Gimbal Labs, Josh from Proof of Africa Stake Pool, Mercy from WADA, and Cole, who we became co-founders with Sustainable ADA. So yeah, that journey for me was what kind of brought me more deeper. It's one thing having tools and technologies, but without people, without humans using it for whatever purpose, then what's the point? And it's never going to reach its full potential, right?
So Raz, let's just jump in. Tell us a little bit about Sustainable ADA. How did it begin? What have you been working on? And what's been on your plate and mind recently regarding the use of Cardano, some of these other chains, and some of the other initiatives that you and I have spoken about sort of before we jumped on these calls?
Yeah, so with Sustainable ADA, when I was having those first calls with Cole, for example, Cole was studying in the US economics and sustainability. Hey, Dan.
Hey, Raz.
Welcome to the show, Dan.
Yeah,
Thanks. That's a mighty fine brick wall you got behind you.
that's right. Yep, back against the wall, but
Yeah, I know. And there's another brick in the wall.
Yeah. Loving the the Pink Floyd.
hey, let's all make wall jokes, and every time somebody makes a new wall joke, you can take a shot.
I love it. Yeah. Well, I'm all about bringing those walls down. It's actually how Sustainable ADA was born. To bring those walls down.
Looks like Brian is way ahead of us now.
Shots of Gatorade, Dan. Gatorade.
Yeah, Gatorade. Anyway, yeah. So great to have you on. It's been how long has it been? I saw you last in Dubai, right? Was it in Dubai or was? Well,
yeah, in Dubai when we were.
Was it in Dubai or was it in Dubai? Because I saw you twice in Dubai. One time for the crypto summit, the other time for the Cardano summit, right? So
yeah. Feels like yesterday.
And I'll see you in Dubai.
I hope so. I'm not actually 100% certain at the moment, but yeah.
Oh, hopefully. Really? Oh, that would be a shame if you don't come. It's gonna be a good time. Actually, well, do you know about the IHOP thing?
The IHOP.
The IHOP thing. Okay.
So you don't know the IHOP thing.
The IHOP thing, right? So, but without going into it, my thing has now become our thing. That's kind of become, our clique thing is that whenever we all get together, we go to IHOP. And so, yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. I'll tell you about it later. But anyway,
while we're at IHOP.
Yeah, while we're at IHOP. And so I've been coming to Dubai for quite a while. I've been coming to Dubai for years, right? For conferences and whatever else. And I always stayed at this hotel. It's just the Holiday Inn. There we go. RWA IHOP Never Ending Pancake. That is definitely that's getting onboarded onto Palmyra right now. Sam, let's go.
I'm sold already.
So okay. So I'm in Dubai. I always most of the time I stay at the same hotel. I just like it. It's really convenient, close to the airport, close to it's just convenient, right? And it's the Holiday Inn Festival City. And I stayed there probably 2, 3, 4 times a year until I found out last year and I knew that there was an IHOP in Dubai at the Dubai Mall. As it turns out, there is actually 2 IHOP locations in the Emirates. One is at the Dubai Mall, and the other one was literally a few doors down from me, next to the Holiday Inn Festival City. So, the universe had brought me to the IHOP. The IHOP wormhole has attracted me. The gravity of it attracted me, even in Dubai, without even knowing I was near an IHOP. So, when you're in Dubai, we should go to IHOP. This is a formal invitation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Received.
Yeah. It's the circle. You're inside the circle now, Raz. You should. Yeah. But listen, I've always really, we always had really good interactions, and what I always liked and really respected about what you do is it's always very much mission driven, right? So, and you were kind of going into what you were, what you got cooking. So, what you got cooking? Have we covered that yet? Because I'm kind of late. I'm a little bit. I had equipment malfunction. It wasn't my brazier. It was just the computer being computery. So have we kind of covered what Raz is? What what Raz is up to?
He's
No?
about to right now.
He's about to. Okay, all right. I came and I interrupt. I came.
No, no.
I hopped into here. I hopped on, and now okay. So Raz.
So good, man. You're in time for dinner. Here we go.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd really love to hear. Well, first of all, I just think it's so important for this ecosystem to have mission-driven projects, right? And mission-driven individuals, because like I'm all for free markets. I'm all for capitalism, and it's all cool. It's just in this kind of in the blockchain movement, I think that the blockchain movement is special because it is a mix of free market capitalism and mission-driven initiatives, both of which kind of work in tandem, and that's what makes it special. That's what makes the movement special. And so your input and what you do with sustainable ADA, I think it's super important, because I think that this industry is actually kind of being more and more hijacked. I mean, it has been for a while, by the numbers go up people, by the how much liquidity, how much money can we suck out an ecosystem and just move on, grifters and all that bullshit. And what you're doing is so important. So I really want to kind of dig into what you do and what you have been doing and what is on the horizon for your project.
Well, first of all, Dan, brother, thank you for your candidness and your warmth and kindness and support. But yeah, man, I think for one, going back to the jokes about the walls and the bricks, I'm just one guy, right? And nobody can do anything when we talk about changing the world for a better place alone. So you need to buddy up and ally. And so for me, when I came into the ecosystem, the community of Web3, that was front and center for me. It wasn't about right, I'm coming into this particular blockchain because I want to make quick money and leave and have a cocktail on the beach. I'm not making judgments. People out there who come into this ecosystem to make money. Everyone needs in this capitalist system to find a way to survive, right? To flourish. But going to what you said about mission driven, that was also one of the kind of beacons that attracted me to Cardano. It was in its early days marketing a very mission driven community, mission driven stake pools, mission driven projects. But if you Googled it, you would struggle to find these mission-driven people and mission-driven projects. And so we figured, if Catalyst is the grant innovation platform to support the growth of Cardano and bring Cardano to the real world, how do you communicate that? It's not by talking about the technicalities of the protocol and the peer-reviewed papers and science and jargon at length. The masses do not care about that and don't understand it. And then they'll just shut down and think it's not for them, which would be a travesty, right? So that's why we started Sustainable ADA. Let's see if we can start to go through the community, which projects are building where, doing what, and write that in a fairly, kind of understandable way, and use a common language. And we chose the UN Sustainable Development Goals framework as a bridge into a bigger audience, because like it or not, this is something that for many years now has been, adopted from top down nation state level. And they do use it as a way of measuring what direction they're going towards, whether or not they're on track or not. And as anyone who's up to date with that stuff, as a species, as a global community, no country is on track to achieving all 17 sustainable development goals, which include eliminating poverty, tackling climate change. All of these goals have measurable targets. So how does blockchain and people come into the figure of that? Now, we've seen, if you look at the politics of the US, in the UK and France, I bring those examples up because they're those that are close to me, and I live obviously in the UK and France, and also in Southeast Asia. You look at the type of leaders that have come to power, and you look at the kind of things people are voting for and want to see. it comes back down to the real nitty gritty, right? If you can't afford food and you can't afford a home and you can't afford a living that allows you to bring your children to a better life, then you're going to resonate with anyone that tells you that that's going to come if you vote for me, or that's going to come if you download this wallet or buy this crypto, you see? And so I figured it comes back down to the people again. If you're going to build a project using this technology, and then have an audience of people who are like taxi drivers, farmers, nurses, doctors, cash register assistants, anyone in the real world, how are they going to come into this industry in the best way possible so that they don't get scammed, so that they don't get disheartened because they were given a lie as a sales pitch? And that's kind of been something I've been trying to work towards ultimately. It's not selling a dream based on lies. It's nothing's perfect here. You know, like you mentioned, Dan, it's a very unique space with diverse people, different ideologies and systems of how the world should be. But that's how we're supposed to progress, right? I think is having those conversations and experimenting and then seeing the results. But then who's keeping track of that? So I think that's kind of where, you know, there's room for action.
So I have a question. What projects have you seen in Cardano that you think, in your opinion, right? Because you've been doing this for a while now. What opinion do you have of projects that are making strides towards sustainability? Is there anybody that you see that have, like, first off, has started off really well or has made some really big improvements in what they're doing to include sustainability?
Yeah, man. Well, for one, you guys, Zengate. So, you know, we did the Cardano Impact Report last year, which was our effort to kind of map who's doing what on that front, right? Now, just to kind of clarify, when people say sustainability or hear that word, sometimes people just think that means plants or trees, right? But it's so much more than that. It's actually including governance as well. It's also including economics. So sustainability is something that is all around us. It's within our daily lives. But yeah, throwing words out there sometimes gets received differently depending on who's listening, right? So for me, when I looked at the Cardano ecosystem, and I was like, okay, who's building to solve real world problems? Empower for me, and seeing their journey. This is something that can speak to everybody, I believe. Who doesn't want to get behind a solution that enables people to own their own home, but not just like any kind of shack, a home that's climate resilient? Because as you look at the science, and especially where they've been operating, you know, you have the rise of severe extreme weather events. So when you have developers who are just in it for profit, building homes that aren't, you know, designed to stand the test of time, and people invest their life savings into that, and then it gets destroyed, that's not right, is it? It's not just. So Empower have been doing a lot of work with, you know, the partners who needed solutions to tap into a population that was not, you know, largely in the home ownership bracket. So financial inclusion, but also when you then look into how people live in their homes, right? Internet, for one. If you have a home with the internet operating properly, you have so much more potential unlocked. So World Mobile is another amazing initiative and company. I was actually at a conference in Istanbul not so long ago, hosted by the UNDP. Now, they brought together mission-driven people, startups from Cardano, from Algorand, and also outside of Web3. And one of the things that we all agreed upon is that the tools are here. The actors are out there wanting to solve problems in their own backyard, so locally led. But how do we bring finance and capital, which is in the billions and trillions, to where it's most needed, to the people who can be accelerated, right? And blockchain has a lot to say in being used to make that more efficient, cost-effective, transparent, and bring stakeholders together in a way that's never been done before. Like, so now we're talking about supply chain, for instance. People across the supply chain, from the palm oil worker who's running the plantation, making sure that the harvest is going to be all right, back into someone in your shop who's selling shampoo, who doesn't even know that the shampoo has ingredients from that palm oil plantation in Indonesia. Now, if you can bring all these stakeholders together in a way that when I buy shampoo or when I buy chocolate, the ingredients are coming from a place that hasn't been using any kind of abuse of the planet or people, and I don't have to, be a private investigator to make sure that's the case, because the technology enables the right actors to bring the evidence on chain. That's game changing.
Yeah, and we talked about this a little bit yesterday, and you had said something, right? Sometimes consumers are unwilling participants in things that aren't good for the environment or whatever it may be, and they're not even aware of it, right? And that really struck me.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think back to 2013, 2014. I was in Indonesia doing my internship from being a master's student in sustainable development. And I had a placement at Greenpeace Indonesia in the Jakarta office. Crazy time, because this was during the campaign run by Jokowi, who was the president that was kind of compared to Obama at the time, promising a lot of change to protect the forests, to bring justice to injustice, to tackle corruption, because Indonesia is home to the third world's largest rainforest. Now, going back to the whole thing about consumers, I'm like 99% sure everyone in the so-called developed world owns a product that has something that's from Indonesia. They don't know that necessarily, don't think about it, so what? But when you're faced with a campaign that shows you the impact of your consumer habits on children, on biodiversity, on somewhere that seems far away, but actually you're somehow connected to, then you start to think, okay, so what's the alternative? I like chocolate, I like wooden tables, I like these things. So how do I make sure I'm not destroying the planet and people's lives buying the things I like? And this is where I think the technology can come into play. However, you need people to understand it. You need people to want to implement and integrate it into those status quo situations, because if they don't, that's where I think it's the battle, right? The revolution, where it's like we have a solution, but clearly not everyone is always interested in getting their seat removed from the table, when it means they get a reduction in profits, when it means that they can't operate in illegal ways anymore. So yeah, I
think the key word there was bottom line, right? When it affects their bottom line.
Yeah, so money again, yeah. So value. How do you measure money? How do you measure value, though? This goes back to impact measurements, right? So for as long as we can remember, if you look at like traditional cost benefit analysis and accounting, so much work has actually been done to look at how we can revolutionize that side of things, the green accounting side of things. Why hasn't it been adopted, though? Because once again, certain things will have to be compromised on. Maybe less profits in the short term, but in the long term, we retain a healthy planet to make profit from. And also, and this is the win-win, right? Can you believe, can we actually also include the people who are on the front lines and have them equitably part of it, and not just exploit for corporate interests, and maybe we'll get a fine slapped on us in years to come because someone was daring enough to investigate it. But this is going off the subject a bit, but yeah, this is what's at stake, I think.
Yeah, actually, what you were talking about kind of made me think about just in general. I mean, there is a movement towards, I guess, what they call sustainability, right? Or what they call, ESG compliance, ESG focus. But with that, for example, like carbon credit trading, right? So there is, you would think that this is actually, aimed for environmental preservation. And in the end, you find out about these stories where, there's this, professional term is bullshit, there's a bunch of bullshit that happens, and somebody buys up a bunch of credits, and they have they're carbon neutral, and they end up chopping down the Amazon or something. It's just it's a scam, and really that is an issue with quite a few quote unquote green projects and sustainable projects that they the greenwash, right? So they just kind of they say, oh, we're gonna do this, this is gonna be great for sustainability and blah 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 blah, and in the end it's just it's bullshit. How do you ensure that does not happen with blockchain solutions? So how do you ensure that greenwashing doesn't happen? You're actually contributing to environmental goals. You're actually building a blockchain solution that will do something for that particular cause, for that particular field, and I guess movement, if you want to call it that.
It's a great question, Dan, and it reminds me rather of conversations I was having in Kyrgyzstan. So I was at a conference hosted by UNESCO, and I managed to talk about DAOs there. So anyone who's not sure or have never heard that term, decentralized autonomous organizations. That might bring up more questions, right? What the hell does that mean? What's all that about? But if you think of, you mentioned movements, so people coming together, right? Us four on screen right now, we all agree that the systems have been failing at large, i.e. there is more inequality, or there's more environmental destruction, there's more illegal logging, even though there are goals and targets saying us as a country are committed to not doing that. We are breaking promises in a way. And I say we as a species. Now, blockchain and DAOs are just like a hammer and a spanner in a toolbox, right? Now, if you're creative enough, you can do a lot with that. You can destroy, and you can also build something, like to stand the test of time to improve lives. And bringing people together when they are all in competing interests, when they're like, oh, why would I work with you? What's in it for me? With a DAO, you can have very clear charters, right? Where you all sign up to something and you agree that you're going to be part of this community, this group, and it's recorded on chain with a date and a stamp, and it's immutable, can't be deleted. Then you can go deeper into that and give people power to vote on matters and to manage funds. And when I was just sharing those concepts with the people at these conferences, and they're from institutions, right, that have millions or billions under management, and they're thinking, oh, that would be amazing if we had those tools, because then we can actually see as a community, right, across the chain, who's doing what, who voted on what, and hold people to account. If you're saying you're going to build more roads, and you need this much to build more roads, and you make it an open, transparent process, anyone that doesn't say what they're going to do, or anyone that attempts to siphon funds for something else, it will be made apparent. But it can't actually be what's it called? It can't be its full potential and effective without the reality of working in the systems and the structures we already have, right? So the regulators, the agencies who are there to be independent watchdogs, checks and balances, they need to understand how these things work, because it's going to make their jobs better. It's going to make their lives more impactful as well. So that takes time to build up capacity building on their front. But then, as you know, there's many blockchains. There's so many things happening in this space. So where do people start, right? And that's a challenge, a real challenge for people in decision-making arenas, like how to make that journey. Where do they start? And that comes back to how we were operating, on a human level, offering access to education, resources, introductions, showing and not telling. Like if I show people a website where there's actual real world impact being done by this company, which addresses the problems that you say you want to solve, you should learn from them. That's how we all improve, I would imagine.
Awesome. One of the things, Raz, if it's all right, Brian, I'll I'll just jump in. One of the things that we've always thought about as a company, and some of the advisors have given advice on, is with supply chains, with collateral risk management, with cross-border trade. There's a lot of things you can do at the end of the day to manage risks. You can use new technologies, you can use systems, you can use things like blockchain to really help mitigate risk as much as possible. And some of the tools that we currently use today around traceability or around like escrow payment solutions so that funds are safe really helps. But at the end of the day, people are involved in many of these transactions. Until we get to a point where everything's run by robots and there's drones in warehouses that have cameras and heat sensors and all that sort of stuff there, which I don't think will happen for a while, but maybe sooner than we realize. But there's still an element around human risk involved in many of the stuff we deal with. And I imagine the case is the same for you as well. But can you walk us a little bit through around the work you've been doing around impact measurement, the framework you've worked, the framework that you've built? Like, what does it actually mean at the end of the day? Like, what are you measuring? How are you verifying this stuff? And like, who gets the benefit from it at the end of the day when something like this is done well and recorded in a transparent way?
Great question. And like, just to clarify, like, when we began this journey at Sustainable ADA, and we're talking about real world impact, and then you realize in the bigger picture of things, people have been working on this for decades, right? Before I was born, even talking about how to build a better world. But then how do you prove that you've done something? You need evidence. So you need to have data that can be trusted. Now, blockchain often is presented as the trust layer, the trust protocol, right? But using like terminology like that you use, Dan, if I put bullshit on the blockchain or lies on the blockchain, doesn't make it true. It means it happened though. Like, I can say I did that, but if I take a picture and say I was in Mount Fuji, which I did in a Photoshop, and put it on the blockchain, doesn't mean I was really there. So you need in real life, on the ground, humans also verifying things. And this is where our work has had to evolve, because people need to understand that, right? You need to work with real life actors who have built up reputation and trust because they do real things and because they work within a system that is legal and trusted by their locals and their governments. So through partnerships with nonprofits, with movements that are labeled as activist movements for human rights, for social impact, environmental, whatever cause we want to focus on. The common theme, though, is, and this was a criticism that was brought to us when we worked on the Cardano impact report. It's like, how are you measuring impact? And why did you choose the UN SDGs as a framework? Now, there are so many different frameworks out there, different ways of understanding impact and measuring it. And it can get very complicated very quickly. It can get very burdensome in terms of how much time it takes to measure across the domain of social, environmental, and governance, and a company's impact. Even just think about your own impact. When you woke up and you brushed your teeth, you needed water from the tap. How much water did you use? Like, do we know? So all these things throughout a day in a company's life, it has inputs, things it needs to run, and then it has outputs, right? And then it has an effect on its local and global, maybe, or national environment and people. So all of that complexity, how do we simplify it? Because this is the other common ask, not just in Cardano's community or Web3. It's, can we make this something simple so that if I'm a company or I'm a founder who wants to do good in the world, I can capture that evidence that I am doing good, and that it can be trusted, and that it can be verified by independent entities. Because if I hire somebody and I give them a nice bit of money under the table and I say, you're going to say I'm a good company, and then we publicize that auditors are saying this is a good company, and then we're all like satisfied with that, then who are we kidding? And that goes back to what you were talking about with the carbon credits, right?
I just that whole carbon credits thing, and Dan, and you bringing that up, right? There was a company in Alaska who was deforesting, right? And what they were doing is leaving small patches of forest, just enough to get the credits, so that they could say that, and they were literally just destroying everything else. Like the whole carbon credits thing, I really, it's very interesting, and I've been learning a lot more about it over the past few years, right? And a lot of it's just a bullshit scam.
It is. It is. Unfortunately, it is, because at its core, actually, it is. So the idea of tracking carbon credits, especially using blockchain technology, I think it's actually a really good, a really good use case, because you utilize immutability, you utilize, public ledgers, and which is basically, what ideally what you would need, right? But I worked in IT for a long time, and I don't know if it's a regional thing, or if it's a if the kids are still using these terms, but back in my day, what we used to say about data, it's garbage in, garbage out. You put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. Doesn't matter what you use to hold the garbage. And it's the same thing here. If you put garbage in, if it's all faulty, it doesn't matter what it's on, right? If it's bullshit data, it doesn't matter if it's on the blockchain. It doesn't matter if Moses comes down from heaven and brings it to you on a tablet. It's still what it is. And it is very important to really kind of have a three-dimensional view of what it is, to really kind of utilize common sense, as well as the technology, and a combination and of in a hybrid, I guess, if you want to call it a hybrid solution. So speaking of technologies, and I guess it has to, in a way, it might have to do with carbon credits, but in general, it's I think it's a good vehicle for tracking sustainability, and myself, and of course the team here, have always been sorry, our DJ and friends, but advocates of monkey picture NFTs. Using NFTs for their utility, and not for the monkey picture and animal picture adjacent stuff that actually still gets stored in IPFS, which is like, anyway, we're not going to get into that. I own some monkey pictures myself, guilty.
I own thousands of them.
So I'm not, I'm not saying that, monkey picture bad is just, we can do so much more with NFTs than just that. Palmyra is doing that, of course. We're utilizing NFTs for tokenization and embedded traceability and all the cool stuff that we're doing. Now, what I wanted to know is, how do you in what you're doing, how do you see NFTs having an impact? How can they help? Well, first of all, how can this technology help you, and how can you utilize this technology to its fullest potential, which is actually, like I said, one of the reasons why the idea of Palmyra was born, is because I saw this awesomeness in the possibility of what you can do with NFTs, and this, like, kind of the narrative kind of getting hijacked, but it's like, well, let's just do this one thing with it. And it's not even like a really good use case for it, but let's just do one thing with it. And then just gonna, all this other stuff is whatever. So what do you think? How can this technology help? Does it help? Does it make sense in the field that you're in?
Yeah, I think with what we're working on, we actually released what we call the proof of impact art collections. Perfect timing. So these art pieces you see on screen right now have been created by Streets of Ada. So this is our other kind of artivist collective. Those pieces were made by my brother and I, and also I think Vic's off screen right now, but he's also been very kind in sharing his awesomeness and creating that piece with the chainsaw on top of the tree. Now, art can stir emotions. It can make you question things, right? It can inspire you. It can make you get off your chair and do something. Music and art. So I figured, looking at everything that's happening in this space, without getting bogged down by the terminology of NFTs and crypto and blockchain, these words, if we zoom out and you're like, right, what are the real world problems that need addressing? Okay, rainforests are being illegally logged. That's one. Why is that a problem? Because if we're logging the rainforest that should be remaining as old growth rainforest, they should continue to stand there to benefit the locals and humanity, because up to 80% of greenhouse gas emissions are absorbed by our rainforests. If we chop them all down just so that we can make room for profit generating endeavors, we will eventually all become extinct. Because if we lose the critical ecosystems that we all depend on, unless we've invented something that I'm not aware of that produces clean air and absorbs carbon emissions and provides us with all of the protection that we need, then we're all going to be screwed. So who's actually working on the front lines? The people that live there most of the time, the indigenous communities, the locals, the people in the rainforests or close to the land. The governments of these countries, however, they do what they can. They have their agencies and departments and their politicians and their bureaucrats and their laws. But if you have profit generation possibilities off of this land, it's very tempting, isn't it, to create jobs, to boost your economic growth of your country. So you tap into those places, even if they're supposed to be protected. And the people who are in between that illegal activity and protecting what is most at stake, they're most of the time doing it as volunteers, or they're doing it for, let's put it in common language, like below minimum wage. They're doing it not for the money. They're doing it because other things matter and it's important. Sometimes they are part of more organized structures like an association, a non-profit, a for-good company. And because they're in those entities, they can sometimes attract donations and grant funding and corporate social responsibility support. But as we have seen, the reports are all out there. If you look at the world of aid and philanthropy and giving, which is like 200 billion USD plus annually, how much of that is going to the people doing the actual work? It's not the lion's share. They're still complaining about being poor, about being unappreciated or being killed. And that really, for me is just unacceptable. So when I met these people in the Philippines and Indonesia who are telling me that, we just enforcing the law. Environmental law says you can do citizen's arrest when an illegal activity is taking place. So if we receive intel that tells us that there's illegal fishing, illegal logging, we go there, we speak to these people on a one-to-one human level, right? We're like, we know you guys are doing something that ultimately is so you can, bring dinner to your table. We're not enemies here. The system is creating the situation where it's like us against each other, but the bigger picture is we're all part of the same community. So how do we work together and realize who the real enemy is? And so when have understood what's at stake, and there was a documentary that cast a light in the Philippines in Palawan called Delicado. It's an Emmy-nominated documentary, and you realize that people are literally getting murdered doing ranger patrols. And you're thinking, how do we broadcast that to a global community that cares about these issues, and wants to support. And NFTs, I think, is a vehicle for that, not just because it can have monkey pictures, but also because inside, on the technical front, on the metadata front, you can add all of the evidence pieces from the grassroots level that allows you to trust that your money, your donation, your investment, depending on the NFT's utility, is going to this wallet and is going to this action, and have insight to that whole transparent chain, which traditionally is not the case. Like if I go onto one of the big leading NGO websites and I see pictures and I'm like, right, donation, €10, $10 sent, and then I don't know. And then maybe I get an email saying, oh, it went to this impact project or this impact project. Most people don't have much time to dive deeper to verify that. They just assume it's happening. And then, reports come out and they say, right, 80% is going to overheads and actually admin and offices that aren't on the ground. They're the ones that then drip feed it to the ground, because the ones on the ground don't have the resources, capacity, and maybe access to that money. They're dependent on those who are bigger. And this is something called the non-profit industrial complex, the NPIC. Some people may be familiar with the military industrial complex or the prison industrial complex. There is a non-profit industrial complex as well. And, for me, working with non-profits or activists and introducing these tools to them and saying to them, there are people that care. There are people that want to invest in your programs, your ecotourism initiatives, your education initiatives, your sustainable livelihood initiatives. And you can bring more direct funding to them using this Artivist in a vehicle of NFTs, which is what we've been working on. But it's really just the tip of the iceberg. It's something that as an industry is not one of the major use cases when you hear blockchain and NFTs, but I think it has a lot of potential.
So I'm going to go way off base NFTs, Dan. Sorry, bro. No more monkey JPEGs for you. But you had talked about something there that is very important to me, education and bringing people together, right? And one of the things that I know that you're working on is this Web3 conference, and we're kind of coming towards the end of the show here. And I want to make sure that we talk about that so that people can find out about this Web3 conference for good and maybe how they can partake in it or participate. If you could tell us a little bit about that, Raz, that would be great.
Sure. So yeah, big shout out to the Project Catalyst peeps who voted for this, because this is a result of funding that was unlocked to enable this conference. Okay. Now, the team behind it are actually not all from the Cardano community, if you want to call it, we'll put it that way. Like, they were made up of folks from the Algorand community and the more broader Web3 community, Positive Blockchain as well, which I'm also part of. But these people who have come together and realized that one of the challenges in the Cardano space, which is often brought up, is marketing, right? How do you explain and present the good here in a way that can be received by more than just your friends and your colleagues? So we break out of this speaking to the choir situation. When you know that there are UN agencies and corporates and investors who are looking for solutions to their problems, and they're looking for real use cases to support and to fund, and they're like, where do I go? This is essentially what this conference is going to make happen. We're going to bring all those people together. It's going to be online, so anyone can join with a connection. We're going to have the public comms go live pretty soon, where we can invite panelists, startups from the community to, either pitch, to network, and to connect, because, we're all from all over the place and we're all working on different missions. But if we can avoid reinventing the wheels, and if we can share resources where it makes sense, if we can harmonize and collaborate, I think we have a better shot of building this so-called sustainable, equitable world. But if we remain siloed and kind of like, well, I'm just my head down on my thing, you either get burnt out, you either miss out on the opportunities that could have taking you to the next level. And so I believe this conference is, it's going to be really, really awesome. It's going to be in October, 3rd week. We haven't set a date yet, but yes, stay tuned to that. We'll have updates on our platforms, on the Sustainable ADA website and Twitter account, and we'll create some dedicated accounts for the conference pretty soon too.
So our community has business owners, as community members who invest in crypto, who interact in crypto. Like who are you really targeting at the end of the day to join this conference, to listen to the panelists speak, to interact, with the people pitching? Is it projects? Is it community members? Is it who are you sort of preaching to here in terms of people that should be coming and sort of listening to what you have to say, and what the people that you've organized to actually speak on the day to say at the end of the day?
So for one, anyone who's building a solution that solves a real world problem, please come. And I mean, when I say anyone, like, I don't just mean the CEO or the CTO or the dev. Like, anyone part of that project is welcome. If you're also aware of a project and you just hold crypto as a kind of lurker, passive dude in the background, and you never go to these type of things generally because you think it's not for you, we're also talking to you, because ultimately, going back to the bigger picture, right? We need everyone to have an interest in building a better world, a better system. And you don't have to be a PhD holder, an entrepreneur, to have some kind of contribution to this improvement that we all need. Now, the degens who just like monkey pictures that they hope they can sell for more money, you guys are welcome too, because we're going to have like digital goodie bags, swag that you could potentially use for your own interests, right? So there's all kinds of opportunities for people to learn, to connect, to get limited edition digital swag, and come out of it thinking, maybe there's still hope to be had. It's not all doom and gloom.
I think sometimes at those types of things, even the digital meetings, right? It's just about connecting with other people who are all in the same thought process, right? Blockchain, sustainability. It's nice to know that you're not alone, because if I went and talked to my family about this, they would all tell me I'm crazy, right? So it's nice to be able to go to even like online conferences and just find like-minded people, really.
100%. And then it's the beginning of new things, hopefully. Like, you can maybe meet up in real life, if you're able to access each other and create a new project or join a new project. Some people are looking for work. They don't know where to apply their talents and energy. This is a place that could, I think, be really interesting for people in that situation too.
So Raz, as we get ready to sort of wrap things up, really appreciate having you on. One thing I always like asking people is, you're obviously an expert in the space. You're obviously speaking to lots of other domain experts, UNDP, like different government institutions, different non-for-profits. You're speaking to people on the ground, like beyond what we've talked about today, beyond what I guess you can read on the news, and I guess the sort of the common language and the rhetoric used in the space. Like, is there sort of an interesting theme that you're seeing emerge that you think might be, like a worthwhile endeavor for projects to look into in the coming years, or big institutions coming in a way that maybe most people wouldn't be able to tell? Like, what's sort of an interesting take that you've been monitoring that is getting you excited beyond, the typical sort of SDG conversations that we have as a community and sort of governments and companies have as well?
So like, the conferences that I was able to attend recently that are hosted by UN agencies, obviously that represents, we're talking about billions of people, right? When we bring in the nation state level. But as we all know, can't depend on our governments alone. We need bottom up. And so what I think gets me excited is that more and more now, people are getting just sick and tired with the BS, and maybe are a bit more open to so-called alternatives or new approaches. And because we've matured slightly more, there are now real-world examples that use these technologies for real-world, improvement and solutions. So then they can latch on and think, right, okay, I'll go deeper into this direction because there is something real here, not just gambling and speculation. And I think that's really important, because all the news around ETFs, BlackRock, big giants who manage millions and billions and all that money that they have control over and influence over, well, they were around before. So we can get excited about the potential of this so-called inflow of liquidity, but there's no guarantees it's going to go to where I think needs to go, or to the people who really need it, who could really do something game-changing with it, because there's usually some barriers and chains of command that already exist in traditional setups that go into what you said, Dan, right? This hijacking. They just come in, they rebrand, and we're like now all supposed to assume that things are going to be better than before. It's not inevitable. It really will depend on the people, how they adopt things and what they adopt. So for me, this opportunity to talk with you guys is something that makes me bullish, because we need to connect with like-minded people who have the energy, the capacity to keep things alive. And we also need to ally with people across disciplines. So it's not just a conversation with technologists, for example. It's something that everyone should have an insight into, and that goes back to education. And there's a lot of initiatives now that are about bringing this to the masses in a way that's understandable for them. And these projects that didn't exist a year or 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, that's also going to help drive things in a good direction. And I think, as an educator, that's always kind of been my where my heart is. If you can't understand that eating pancakes every day might not be good for your cholesterol.
Whoa. IHOP
right?
doesn't want to hear anything about this, Raz.
No. But there's healthy pancakes now, so
Yeah, the maple syrup does 0 sugar, from what I've heard.
Don't you fud IHOP, okay? We can get.
It's not proper maple syrup, so it's fine.
Yeah. We got sugar-free syrup, protein pancakes.
Plant-based. It's all plant-based. It's all good.
Yeah. Plant-based. I mean, the steaks are plant-based. I mean, they eat plants, and so that it works out. They got plant-based turkey bacon. For me, I don't eat pork, so I like the turkey bacon. Turkeys also eat plants, so it also works out. So don't, Brian. That's a big no-no.
He was trying to FUD it, Dan. I got to him before he FUD'ed the pancakes.
First rule of IHOP at Zengate: you don't talk bad about IHOP at Zengate.
Unless it's positive.
Except me.
No, including you.
Oh, okay.
You're not exempt from this.
It has not been enforced to date, but
it will be. Yeah, I'm saving
New
demerits for you. I'm saving IHOP carbon credits for you to be accountable with.
I only take the IHOP coin. They have an IHOP coin, so I'll take payment in that. But I guess on that note.
Yeah, listen. Unfortunately, we're at the end of our allotted time by Victor,
by me,
I guess, and Brian, and then anyway, we can talk to you for hours. I think we got a lot of we got a lot of the same ideas.
We have a Twitter space, a weekly Twitter space, Raz, and I'm going to reach out to you. I'd like to get when we're a little closer to that conference. I'd like to get you come on, talk about it. Let's get the word out about it.
Awesome, guys.
I like your handle, Rezlosophy. That's
listen. That Twitter has him hidden. Like, he is shadow banned on Twitter. So
what did you do, Raz? What did you do? Exactly. What did you do to Elon? Why does he have a shadow ban? I'm serious. Like, I always have to look. Listen, we follow each other, and I always have to look for your tweets. because it's they never come up. And have you spoken bad about IHOP in the past?
No, it can't be that. That's all off the socials.
Okay.
You know?
Well, we got to figure it out. Listen, it would be great to have you on the space. Brian, please let Raz know how he can jump on the space with us. That would be fantastic. We'd love to have you back on the mainstream. Always a pleasure to speak to you. And again, when Dubai IHOP?
Well, I can see my wife just poked her head in, so I'm going to break the news.
Break the news. Break the news.
Yeah, guys.
Listen. In fact, that IHOP is like the a place of where universe comes together. It's actually an IHOP and an Applebee's together.
I have been there actually, so
yeah.
That was
Sam
solid.
has been there. A few other choice people have been there. So anyway, I hope to see you in Dubai. It was a pleasure to have you on the mainstream. I love what you're doing. For lack of a better expression, keep it up. We need this. We need this in the ecosystem. We need this kind of, like I said in the beginning, mission-driven initiatives, mission-driven projects that really do make a difference, and that are a very important part of the movement, which is, like I said, which is what makes it special, and which is why so many are in it. Like for example, you and me. I mean, for us, it's about the potential of the movement. It's not just about the profit, right? Well, profit is great. It's not the end all be all. Numbers go up is not the end all be all of these things, and because there's just so much more potential. So, listen, thank you for coming on the mainstream. Great to have you on, and let's make a difference.
100%. Thank you so much, and you too, guys. Keep going. And I look forward to the next time. I think we're going to have these conversations going forwards a lot more often if you can have the time for it. And to everyone that listened and tuned in, thank you as well. And reach out if you have anything you want to connect on. I'm always accessible.
Excellent. Well, listen, everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for playing the drinking game. If you're playing the drinking game of every time we say mainstream, you take a shot. Brian took a shot of Gatorade many times. I think he says it's Gatorade, but that looks like vodka to me.
Potato vodka, only potato vodka here, bro.
Potato vodka. That's the way to go. That's like I come from a vodka culture, and that's what you do. You go potato. You don't go grain. Grain is the working man's vodka. Potato is the connected party member vodka.
Are you guys bringing that to Zengate with the potato farmers?
Which one are you? Are you the connected party member, or are you, are you the factory worker? Anyway, Sam is already shaking his head in disapproval, so I think it's a good time to leave it off. Listen, guys, same time, same place, same channel next week. And until then, this is Dan, barely alive from Japan, with my friend Sam and Brian, who's a fan of Steelers, which will.
Hey, I got a stuff.io.hat on today. No Steeler stuff, just stuff.
No. Okay, stuff.io hat. Brian Mann and Raz. He's just Raz, you're a Cardano OG. The no extra labels required. And so thanks a lot for tuning in, and until next time, signing off.